These are the notes for the second part of Chapter 22, the Great Depression and the New Deal in Georgia. We're going to focus on the first New Deal, which got started with Roosevelt's election in 1932, in which he carried Georgia along with all the other southern states. There were three major goals: to bring relief to the millions of poor and unemployed, to help the economy recover, and to put some permanent reforms in place designed to help prevent future episodes like this from ever happening again. In his first inaugural speech, March 4th, 1933, Roosevelt very famously said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Take a listen to just a short clip from that speech.
This preeminently the time to speak the truth frankly and boldly. Nor need we shrink from honestly facing conditions in our country today. This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed effort to convert retreat into advance.
In the first 100 days, the president and Congress passed lots of the major acts that we now know as the New Deal. Take a look at this cartoon. It's entitled, "It's His Baby Now." This is Hoover, and we have Roosevelt peeking in the door. Come prepared to class to talk about what this political cartoon means, please. One of the first things that was done was to declare a bank holiday and banking reform. Roosevelt called for a bank holiday in which banks would be closed until they could be investigated for soundness. He wanted to stop these runs on banks and panics and people just losing all of their money because there was a run on a bank. Within a few months, most Georgia banks were reopened. The Banking Act separated commercial banking from investment banking. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but before this, they were not separated, and this is what got some of those banks into trouble. They were taking their clients' savings and investing them as opposed to just making local commercial loans. That got changed. They also created the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. This is still around. When you go up to the drive-thru, you'll see a little sign that looks like this. It insures an individual's checking and savings account up to a certain amount. We'll talk more about that in class. Another program was the AAA, or the Agricultural Adjustment Administration. This was important for Georgia since it was a farming state. What it did was pay farmers subsidies not to grow certain crops. The idea was to prevent overproduction, which led to lower prices. We talked when we were talking about the causes of the Great Depression that overproduction leads to this unhealthy cycle of having too much of something, therefore lower prices, and it's just a downward spiral. This is what they're trying to prevent here. This was later declared unconstitutional. But it did have at least one unintended consequence, especially in the South. It helped bring an end to large-scale sharecropping. If farmers were paid not to plant things, then they didn't need those sharecroppers working on their land. The Civilian Conservation Corps was one of the most popular New Deal programs. It was founded and led by Georgians. It established over 1,000 camps around the country for young men just out of high school. They did things like clear brush, plant trees, build parks, work on roads. They were paid between $25 and $30 a month. They kept 5 of it, and the rest was sent home to their family. It was very popular and lasted up until World War II. If you've been to FDR State Park or Vogel State Park up in North Georgia, you have seen the work of the CCC. Here's a map showing all of the CCC camps in the United States. There were lots in Georgia. These 2 pictures are from FDR State Park. This is from a state park in Alabama. Tomorrow in class, we'll take a look at a few short videos of men, or audio from men who were employed by the CCC. So we'll talk a little bit more about it. Other early programs included the National Industrial Recovery Act, which tried to regulate industrial output just like the AAA had done for agriculture. It also guaranteed workers the right to join unions. The Public Works Administration, or PWA, funded building projects like dams, airports, schools, and hospitals. Now, please consider how that would be helpful. How would it be helpful to a town to have a PWA project building a hospital? What are the specific ways in which it would be helpful to that town and the economy of that town? Not everybody in Georgia was happy with the New Deal program. Most Georgia politicians supported it, but Eugene Talmadge absolutely loathed it. He believed that relief or help should come from private sources. He was afraid of recognizing labor's right to bargain. He wanted to keep unions out of the state, basically. He did not want the federal government to grow too powerful, and part of what was going on is that he was afraid it would bring more racial and class equality, because those programs demanded that workers be paid the same amount no matter what their color was. We will continue in the last section with the New Deal 1935 and beyond.